From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates across North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show and on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. One of the best voices in the world of cryptids joins us tonight as the crypto guru Ronald Murphy endears us with his romantic tales of monsters in the forest. Over the last 5 years, the guru has paved a path to monsters that lurk around us, from Chestnut Ridge to the West Coast Sasquatch. The guru tells stories legends are made of. He's got a great book series called the On Series. It can be found at any major bookstore or online. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Ronald Murphy, always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing pretty good, my friend. It's been a pretty hectic time for me. I just became a grandfather almost 2 months to the day today, so that's a little bit hectic. So everything pretty good right now in my life. Looking forward to coming onto the show. We scheduled this about a month in advance, and I've been counting down the days, and now it's here. So it's kind of like me getting up at Christmas, and now I get to open up a present.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you here, as we are every single time that you grace our presence of our radio show here. And I say thank you for you doing that, because you are truly one of the best. You have a very intelligent and romantic way that you talk about these cryptids and monsters. And I'm curious, it's something that is very, very strange going on here, and I know my audio is sounding a little bit terrible on the Spreaker end, and I apologize about that. However, I can't shut down the show. That's the problem. I can't shut down the show. We gotta keep going here. We gotta keep moving. And so, Guru, one of the things that I want to chat with you about is the way you got into this. You kind of got into this by fluke. It was just a little bit of a zest that you had, and you just made it happen.
You know what? That is the case. My mother had a great interest in the paranormal. She had a few experiences with what would have been called UFO sightings and, Bigfoot encounters. And this was all back in the mid-1970s here in Western Pennsylvania. So she really imparted in me this great love for things that go bump in the night. So I was able to look at the world from a very early age and really look at it with a sense of awe. And I also found it, incredibly deep and layered. It wasn't just black and white. There was a lot of gray areas. And then, we would go investigate local Bigfoot reports. She would load my brother and I up in the car, and we would go through the back roads of Western Pennsylvania trying to follow up on reports. Now, we never encountered anything, but you have to take it for a 5- and 6-year-old boy going out with her mother on a Saturday and Sunday afternoon looking for monsters. This was a great way to be brought up. And then I went, of course I was in school, and I went through my elementary years, which was grades 1 through 8, at a small parochial school called St. Simon and Jude. Unfortunately, the school is no longer there. The church is still there, but the school was disbanded. But I'm convinced that one of the nuns must have been a closet cryptozoologist, because this little library in this school, which was probably no larger than your dining room at your house, was loaded up with books, books on conjecture and speculation, everything from von Däniken to Hüvelmans. I mean, just really loaded up with a lot of great literature on the paranormal. So And that's before the internet. So I guess some of our listeners probably remember the day where you actually had to physically go to a place and pick up a book and check it out. But that's what my whole childhood was about. I read about these great monsters and all these legendary sightings, and then my friends and I, we would go out in the woods to see if we could find anything of our own. And this really stuck with me my entire life, and it's one of those things that propelled me even now. It's that love affair that I had with these creatures since I've been a kid.
That is awesome, man. That is completely awesome. The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, with us tonight. Ron, I got to ask you, in regards to the monsters that you fell in love with through your research of legends and lore and backroad stories, is there one that really stuck out for you that changed you and knew that you had to do something about this? And that was get involved.
Yeah, you know what? These are all very good questions, and I think whenever you would definitely as a host trying to get the source of why people do the things they do, that's extremely important because a lot of people get into this field for all the wrong reasons. They see it as money making, or they see it as exploitive, or this is a way for fame, and that was not my agenda to get into this field. I seriously had a lot of questions. And I remember one of the stories that my mother had told me, that she was taking out her garbage on a winter evening, and she saw under the streetlight, which was the last streetlight on our street before it led to the woods, she saw something walking under that streetlight in a snowstorm and fade out of the light and disappear into the woods. Now, whenever she told that story to me, she wasn't quite saying that she saw a Bigfoot. What she was saying, that she saw something that she couldn't quite explain. It looked human, but it was not doing things that humans normally do. And that's really what got me. The idea that people are seeing things out there, even people in my own family. I know that these are sane people. I know that these are sober people and lucid people. So from a very early age, I discovered that there were people out there witnessing things that they could not explain what was happening. So immediately, my first introduction to this world was believing in what people had to tell me, because I know there was no profit to be involved. This was just a story my mother had told me. And where I live is part of Appalachia. This is all part of the Appalachian Plateau. And I start to investigate stories that occur from this area. This is where we not only have Bigfoot sightings or wild man sightings in places like Kentucky, but we also have in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, we have the Mothman. We have very mysterious Indian mounds in this area. We have numerous hauntings. We also have strange creatures like bat squatch and sheep squatch. So it was really dealing with the people and the folklore and the stories that come from this area that inspired who I am today. So if I do have a romantic take on this, I think that comes from the great storytelling tradition that is part of the culture of this particular area as well.
The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, is our guest tonight on the Mighty SOR. Guru, I want to know, in regards to everything that you have studied, what's your favorite? Is it the paranormal? Is it ghosts? Is it Bigfoot? Is it Dogman? Where do you like to go with this?
Well, again, Dave, this is why you're the best in the business. I think, and this could lead us all on a different, road of discussion, I don't see the paranormal as different categories. I see it as one all-encompassing thing. So when we talk about UFOs and Bigfoot and Dogman and lake monsters and all this stuff, of course I look for a logical explanation. I look for a flesh and blood explanation. But the deeper you go down the rabbit hole, it seems that there's a connection with all these things. They're not separated as much as they are interconnected. And as I've been doing this now for, 30-some years, actually studying this from an academic point of view, it really starts making sense, and we're starting to connecting the dots to see that, there's not a lot of differences between UFO sightings and Bigfoot sightings and hauntings. It all seems to be part of the same milieu, if you will, the same spirit. And that's really what I'm working on nowadays. So, like my On series, which starts off with mermaids, and I write about Bigfoot and Dogman and werewolves and ghosts, and Brian Bowden and I will be putting out a book pretty soon about ancient alien contact in the New World. There's really not this separation. There's more of an interconnection. And that is something that really is intriguing to me as a researcher.
The crypto guru Ronald Murphy is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And be honest, I mean, you're good friends with Brian Bowden. He's been a guest here numerous times on the show. Where does he have time for his 600 podcasts that he hosts every week? I don't know where he finds the time, man.
You know what? Yeah, every time you listen to him, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, he talks about anything. So he might have a show one day about UFOs, and the next day he's talking about bookie numbers for off-track betting. The guy has so many podcasts. I bet he's going to be in the Guinness Book of World Records at some time.
Oh, absolutely, he will. Absolutely.
Actually, he has so many podcasts. I think a few of the podcasts, he's actually not only the host, but the guest on some of them as well.
That would not surprise me with him. That totally would not surprise me. We got to have him back on. I love Brian. I do.
Yeah, originally, if he was as good at getting his work done on this book as he is putting together podcasts, I wanted to have this show tonight talking about our new book, but unfortunately, Brian has to go, because of all the income he's generating from these podcasts, he's vacationing in the Hamptons and things. So after he had this extended vacation, wherever he was, Newport, Rhode Island or wherever, he saunters back into town and says, Ron, you know what? We'll work on the book in a little bit. So, of course, we can't be on here to get together as we're supposed to be, as Bowden and Murphy, the team, the force to be reckoned with in the field. But maybe next time when we get together, this book will finally be done. I think that it's very intriguing what we've come up with. We talk about connecting the dots and everything, and this is the first book that I've ever worked on concerning UFOs. But it really is an interesting thing when we talk about the kind of evidence that we find in early Native American cultures that seem to not only point to UFO visitations, but it also points and is extremely analogous to other sightings around the world at the same time.
Crypto guru Ronald Murphy is with us tonight. Ron, I asked you earlier, out of everything that you love to write about, you just stepped into the UFO world, which is relatively different for you. What's the difference between writing for UFOs and writing for monsters and cryptids?
Well, I think whenever you talk about UFOs, it's defining what is the intelligence behind the UFO. And that's the slippery slope. If we're talking about an extraterrestrial intelligence, then you have to start delving into the world of physics and science to figure out how they are able to get here. And that's really my biggest problem in dealing with extraterrestrials. Now, if there's something, called ultra-terrestrials, which is one of these kind of things that John Keel came up with back in the 1960s, the idea that we're not dealing with something out of of our solar system, but something actually out of our dimension, that something can transcend the dimension in which we live in, that makes more sense to me. But I think that when we're talking about something like an alien from a different solar system, and then you talk about them deriving from places like the Pleiades, then you have to figure out how they get here and all the kind of science that's involved, and really have an explanation on how they're able to transcend space and time like they do. That's my main caveat. It has to do with the exactness of the science that you're dealing with. Now, of course, whenever I deal with things like Bigfoot or even witches or vampires, I deal with, very exact sciences as well, too, like psychology and sociology. But UFOs are these little buggers that are very difficult to pin down because we're dealing with a craft that is enabling getting them from point A to point B, and that is really kind of outside of my pay grade. So I think what happens whenever Brian and I put this book together, that he compliments me and I compliment him in different ways. He's more of the science guy, and I think that whenever you sit down to read this, and I am excited about it. It's not just because I'm blowing my own horn, but this is something that we worked on for several years now. I think that whenever you sit down and see how interesting it is when we talk about ancient America to the idea of what seems to be extraterrestrial contact or some sort of contact with a culture outside of this world, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, it starts, it really starts asking a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Crypto guru Ronald Murphy, we got about 7 minutes to go before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Ron, when you're looking at UFOs, especially with the way things are going now, we hear all the old stories. We hear everything that is wrong with ufology. We hear everything that is right with ufology. It's all about the technology. It's not about the stories anymore. How do you build your own book to be something different?
Because we are looking at it almost like anthropologists. We are going into the stories of the First Nations peoples and showing that not only are these stories very ancient from an oral tradition, but according to that culture, these stories are thousands of years older. So we're talking about stories that originated even before people came to this country, before they even emigrated. So they were bringing these tales and these ideas from other places from around the world, which is extremely interesting. And then whenever we talk about mound building, we can see in places like Carbondale, Illinois, at a place called Cahokia, this creation called Monk's Mound, which is a pyramid in essence, a pyramid that looks strikingly like the pyramids of Mesoamerica from the Aztec and Maya cultures, and it has a larger base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, what's interesting is at that exact same place, that exact same area, there's also a Woodhenge, which looks remarkably like Stonehenge, that is featured in England's landscape, So there is something going on that's connecting the world as we know it. Some sort of technology was introduced to mankind at around the exact same time, and it kind of organically spread in some way. So what it looks like, from a point of view, like, and we're talking about anthropology and folklore and oral traditions, it looks as if somebody introduced a certain type of idea, and that gradually spread from cultures around the world, so that very different places utilize the exact same iconography or the exact same architecture. Now, to me, as somebody that thinks himself as an academic as well, it's extremely interesting because we don't have to speculate so much. We don't have to go so much into conjecture. What we are doing is we are laying it out for you and showing you, look, this appears in Chinese culture. This appears in African culture. And gosh darn, you can also find this in North American cultures as well, too. What the heck is going on?
And that's the problem. We don't know what's going on.
That's right. That's right. We don't know what's going on. But, Dave, we don't know what's going on, but we know it's going on, if that makes any sense. It sounds a little bit like circular reasoning, but we do not understand what's going on, but we know that it is certainly happening.
Ron, as you look into those First Nations legends, why do you find it important to go down that road where so many researchers have refused?
Well, that's perfect. Yeah. So a lot of this has to do with ethnocentricity. A lot of this has to do even with almost outright racism. People think that the First Nations people, the indigenous people, were not intelligent enough to come up with, reliable type of stories, and we're talking only about mythologies. That's what's going on here. But whenever I talk about the First Nations people, they were so interconnected with the world around them that whenever they mention things like Dogman, or whenever they mention things like Bigfoot, or whenever they mention things like, extraterrestrials or UFOs, something is going on, because it meant to them something to their worldview. It was important to their worldview. And that is why it is essential that everybody who is in any field dealing with the paranormal, I don't care if you're a ghost hunter or you're, looking for Bigfoot, you must first always look at the First Nations folklore of that particular area to find out if something like that has some sort of lineage that is unbroken over the centuries. A lot of times whenever I investigate hauntings, which I do as well, I will look at, see what the Native American stories are first to see if that can be connected, because a lot of these hauntings might be, hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and people are going in there and thinking these hauntings are something that is from the Victorian era, and that certainly is not the case. So, yeah, we never can rule out anything. We have to be all inclusive and comprehensive, and in order to do that, I have to listen to the tales told by the First Nations.
Crypto Guru, we got about 2 minutes to go here. The legends and the stories that come down, that's what people say. It's just legends, it's just stories, there is no proof. Is there proof out there, Ron?
Well, a proof, that's what you said, correct? Because you faded off a little bit there. You said proof, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, proof is one of those things that's subjective. I may show you a picture of a petroglyph, and that's proof enough for you. Somebody else might want DNA evidence. So as far as I'm concerned, I think whenever we talk about things like Bigfoot, and just looking at the track records that are out there for 50, 60 years, I think there's enough evidence to suggest that there is something bipedal leaving very big tracks out there that does not fit into the scientific explanation. So that to me is proof. But some people don't believe in that. Some people want much stronger evidence. They want DNA evidence and things to make it conclusive. But this field is not so much about being completely conclusive. There's always going to be gray areas out there, like I said at the very onset. We don't know what we're dealing with. And we may never know in this lifetime or next lifetimes or any lifetime what we're dealing with. But we are still trying to get to the very root of it. There's a lot of investigators out there that see it as very black and white, and a lot of researchers out there are in it for the wrong reasons. And you can see why so many organizations are failing at this point and really kind of giving the paranormal a bad name, which is unfortunate. And actually, Benjamin Radford from the Skeptic Inquirer said the people that are doing the most damage to the Bigfoot field are the Bigfoot researchers, because they're not going about it, quite properly, and they're putting each other down. But we really do need to work together. So whenever we talk about getting proof, unless we all work together in harmony, and we are open with our research and share, we're never going to come across with what they call proof.
Guru, you hold on. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Spaced Out Radio continues next.
Awesome.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a